gotta know doing the Sharpfire Kit. Now I've been trying to come up with a good video scheme, and that's kind of delayed me. So let's just do one section at a time. This is the breech for a Sharpfire Kit. It's going out tomorrow, shipping. But okay, what you need to understand is first how to install the barrel. I've decided just to break this up into groups. This is an unmodded Sharpfire. Out of the box, we all know it sucks. Okay, here's what you do first off. First off, you take your barrel off of your Sharpfire, and these are pre-spacered right here. Okay, if you want to less than the diameter of this in duct tape, wrap that around so it looks more solid, so light doesn't get it. That's fine. But honestly, this is best because it lets the glue flow all the way to the bottom. So here's what you do. You take this over here, you slide this over here. Remember, this one is not the diameter of this. It is actually the diameter of that. So you take this right here, you slide that in to about there. Now it's going to have some resistance, but not too much. Make sure your breech finger is on the bottom. It looks like it would be removable, but it's not. The whole thing has to be one solid system in order to work. Now, here's how you do this. You then put this in, you snap this into place, and you push this all the way till you feel the slide move. Okay? All the way till you feel the slide move. Make a reference of where that is. Okay? And push it back a little bit, maybe about 1/8. So make this so this moves back 1/8. Okay? You pull this out without hindering the movement. So measure where that is and gently pull this out. Without touching this, you're not moving it while you do it. Okay? So this now gives you the reference. This now gives you the reference of where the front of the barrel is. Okay, so then you take this and you fill this with go-to glue and you stand it up like this overnight. And as you can see on the inside of it, you got a little bit of a space in there, and you just dive the glue in there. Don't worry, it's not going to stick in there, but try not to get any here in here because then it won't dive out, but it'll sink all to the bottom and dry. Here's a bottle of go-to glue. This is Loctite all-purpose go-to glue. It is basically diluted silicone in a bottle. It is my favorite material. It is my favorite glue for darts and dart heads, and it is most definitely my favorite for the Sharpfire. So once you have this all glued overnight, the whole thing will dry. Okay. Then this whole thing, I would say, fill it to about that much when you do it. What you have now is this is glued solidly to the whole thing. From here on in, you can take it and you glue this part right up here, alright, and you interlock it into the Sharpfire. You glue all of this over here. Now remember, this is not made to be removable. If you want this to be removable, remember you have a little bit of a groove right in here. Cut this off right here, because at that point it'll be hollow, and cut this off, so that when it's closed, you hit this hole right here. I don't build them that way myself. But what you can do then is you can unscrew it from this side if you ever want to take this whole chassis apart and put it in the cell. But before you do that, you have to take this whole thing apart. Okay? And you have to take this trigger assembly out. So let's do that next. Okay, so here's the Sharpfire trigger. I have one extra from building it. Now, what you may notice about it is I've got this really long finger that goes to your ratchet when you close it up. And I had a friend in Kenzie who wanted me to try to keep one intact. The Nerf internals are just not good enough to keep the ratchet intact. So, what you want to do on this is you want to remove, before putting this barrel in and gluing it, you got to take this whole thing apart and you got to remove all the locks and the trigger. But the trigger is the reason why you're doing it. I have kept the locks and everything in place on one of them, and it will work fine, But if you do not cut this part out, you will not have enough dive to do the power of my Sharpfire kit. But it's really simple. You get your trigger assembly out. You very simply just take it. I use a pair of pliers. You can cut it with whatever you want. Okay. Make sure this hole is here because it pivots off that. And you just take a file, you round it off like so. It's not that hard to do. It's very simple. Just like that. Okay. Okay. Get rid of all this white plastic. And what you'll have is a trigger assembly that can hold as much as you want, because now you have enough dive for your rear trigger assembly. So let's take this apart, shall we? Now, so as soon as you have this assembled, you have this glued, you have to let that sit. Now while it's sitting, you can probably do a lot of this stuff. Alright. I want my preview window to stay. Alright. Now one option with the Sharpfire kit that you can pursue is to make it so that this whole thing just glues on from this bolt. So that pretty much what you end up with, oh yeah, you got to push this in to do it. Pretty much what you end up with is this, and you can unscrew it from here by taking this all off and make it so that you end up with that. Alright, so here I got the slide assembly off. After that, it's just 7 little bolts. Okay. Very simple. What you're going to find the hardest part with is actually not in here. It's this little button thing. It has a spring that always pops out. But a lot of people don't want to use this as a carbine anyway. I don't blame them. Especially when you got a hot rod carbine like I got. And this is a good pistol, but it's decent. Is it like total hot rod? No. Like compared to a lot of my pistols, but it's about as far as people want to go with pistol. If you want to know the truth, most people don't want to do. They're not concerned with doing 180 flat with a pistol. That's cool. And this is an excellent sidearm. I showed in previous videos, it actually can fit behind the belt. Okay. So take off the rear cover, and that is exactly why I closed the drain. Take off the rear cover there. Take that off as so. And very carefully take this off like this. And just, yeah, okay. So here's the internals of a Sharpfire right here. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. See this little groove right here? What happens is, what happens is when you pull this, it's limited by where this is, where this finger is. Watch. It can only go a certain amount, and it can only dive this part in a certain amount. So if I just remove this part right here, and I put in my newly modified trigger, look at the action now. Whoa. Look how far it dives. Sorry. Look how far it dives down. Way more. This finger goes all the way down to the bottom of the breech. It can never lock up no matter what your yell is. So, from here, you want to remove whatever hasn't fallen out so far. You want to remove all your locks. Okay, you don't need them. They're only going to cause you problems. You do not need a dart finger in here, since the dart finger is replaced by the breech here. Okay, you don't need it. You absolutely do not need it. Okay, so take this part right here, take it out. Take out your finger. You're going to have springs and stuff lying everywhere. So mind your vacuum cleaner. Okay, because they do. They go, especially when you're trying to go upright and show everybody. Okay, so all your locks out. Your trigger filed like that. Okay, then what you're going to want to do, let's see, push this in and put this in like so. What you're going to want to do next is take this whole thing out, okay? You got 4 screws in the back, alright? Like so. And all this has to be done before the front is put in, or else you're never getting it assembled again, okay? Which is why a lot of people may choose just to take this and make the screw accessible, and that's fine. Okay, so here's this. Here's this. Alright. So here we are. You got this whole thing here. Wish there was a way to keep that preview window on. You got this whole thing here. You have your plunger head, okay, right there. And you have your slide, your bolt right here, okay. Now put in mind the bolt goes between, I want you to see it before it is disassembled. It goes between these inner fingers here and here. So when you put it back together, you want everything interlocking. One of the reasons why the Sharpfire kit is so accurate is that everything on this blaster interlocks, and the Sharpfire kit takes advantage of that. Okay, so here's a bolt. You have to do 3 things to the bolt. 4 if you want it to be dual interlocking. Okay, number 1, you got to get a pair of pliers. Snap, 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 snap. You have to file all of this out and get the AR out. You could, of course, just glue it, but no, you don't want to do that. So just do that. Put in your piece of little piece of brass, a little brass ring that looks like it's a pinky of a tiny little elfin creature with very long fingers. Put that in there, okay, and then take your go-to glue and go all around it. Let that sit overnight. It's going to be kind of hard because this finger here is going to stick out, and I don't recommend getting rid of that because when you do, it sort of makes this all brittle, and I've had problems with cracks on them. Okay, so how that just sit. Let me show you an example. And yeah, no Cecily DeMille, I am not. Okay, just have it sit like that overnight with that in there, okay? That's number 1. But before you do that, okay, this hole right here, there's a big problem with the Sharpfire. My guess is even with people who don't have the kit, if you were to plug this up, and this right here is a troublesome part too. This is where they glue the AR. It's a lot of times loose. Hit this with go-to glue or crazy glue right here. Seal it. Okay, so there's no air going through here. Remember, we need a perfect seal. Okay, and then take a piece of tape right here and hit it with crazy glue on the bottom of it. And be careful because you do not want to glue these rails. So that means that the glue has to go on the actual tape, but not on or in these rails. So you have to be very careful. Another idea is just to put a nub screw just in there, but you don't want it going all the way in so that it interferes with our breech here. As you can see, and I don't have the sealant on here yet, but I will. As you can see, this is made to perfectly interlock. That's how I designed it. So as you can see, the very end of the finger, if you can see that, is right there. You don't want it hitting that. You don't want it hitting that at all. So then on this, then take a pair of pliers, remove this this pin entirely. You can keep it in, but if you go dual interlock, you want it removed. So you can keep it if you want. It will make it so no matter what, it will push the dart into here. And remember, this is made mostly for X darts and Steffens, okay? Into here to make sure it fires no matter what. And do remember, to fire thoroughly, the dart has to be in this ring, or else it doesn't have a seal. Not a perfect one. It will fire, just not as far. So keep that like that. Another piece of advice on this piece is to change it out with a fire strike seal. It will, however, make the priming not as fast, but it will make it so this never has to be taken out and will always be sealed. So you take this, you run a couple of rings of Teflon tape around here, and then with this whole assembly done, as I just described, you put it back into your plunger tube. Okay, make sure this top part is up and go into here. You're aiming for these 2 rails inside like so. Okay, I've taken a few of these apart, but you know it's not easy to get sometimes. The trick is, you see this part right here? there's a very small zone where that's out, and you can maneuver it to those two rings. So at that point, you only got maybe 1/8 of an inch to maneuver. Okay, boom. See? So you gotta like, this is so hard to do on vid. Boom, see, like that. So, that's in, like so. There you go. Okay. Then you want to take this, you want to throw a few lines of Teflon in there, you want to throw some lithium grease in there, and you want to lose this. Because that's just going to, with the yields on high, this is just going to be smashed in a million pieces, and you'll see little chunks of rubber flying out of it. It's just, you know, when you go high yield. And don't worry about it, it won't break. There's enough air resistance in there as it's firing that it won't break as long as you have a good enough seal. Here, take this, put that in there. Take my supplied spring, throw that in there. Okay. So then your breech is ready and you're ready to glue the barrel onto the blaster. Okay. So let's see. I got to take, the only part you need to actually fire it is the trigger and the trigger catch. If you want to keep this on here, that's optional. You can like open this up later, and sneak it in there. It is a pain to put in. One thing I did on some of my subsequent models, you don't have to change out the spring. You're fine. On subsequent models, what I did was I actually glued the spring on this part right here. This little tiny spring is the one that goes on here. Okay? The little tiny one. So, and the problem is that it's longer. You want to get this finger over that, and then you want to push that in like so. This is really fun to keep together, believe me. Okay, let me get my preview window up. I make a confession, or I try to before every video I make. Cecil B. DeMille, I ain't. Okay? Okay, so there it is. There's the rail, there's that. Okay, get that in there, as so. Make sure your spring's in there, okay. Make sure this is all working in order, because once it's put together, you're not getting it back out. Make sure this rail right here is touching that, okay. There it is, there it is, and now put this together, okay. What you're gonna find is that this bottom part is the hardest part to keep in. It's the hardest part to assemble. It's the hardest part to get right. You gotta line everything up. Okay, those two rails right there, boom and boom. Make sure those are lined up. Okay. Make sure everything's pressed in, and then break out your screwdriver. Hit the trigger screw first. Okay. Boom. And if this isn't right, you can always do it later. Don't worry. Okay, you can always do it later. Your trigger catch screw there, okay, boom, boom, okay, like that, like that. So with the changes I talked about, I didn't necessarily do, but I talked about, okay, for the sake of time and everything else, because I tried to do in the other videos and it just didn't fly, okay. There you go. At this point, this should all be glued. The AR should be out, you know, the hole should be glued, everything. This crack, you just want to glue it all around. But you don't want to glue it to the point where it messes with this clearance right here. So you got to keep it thin. Okay? So, then I got this right here, these two. So I'm going to take my priming handle, put it around this part right here. Now here's the trick if you want to go past my kit specifications. But what I'm seeing is that my kit specifications, and I've gone all the way to 25 kilograms. What I'm seeing is that you're best off just sticking with the specs, is to take this part right here and glue it to this. That's crazy glue here and then crazy glue here, but make sure it doesn't go into the rest of the blaster. And you do that by doing the whole thing upside down. You glue it. Okay? So, there's that. And I kept these separate for good reason, because they're a little longer than the other screws. So, after that, there it is. You just throw this in here. Believe it or not, we're almost done. Believe it or not, we're almost done. This here. And then you do this here. like so. Okay. So with your plunger, everything in there, your spring, you throw the spring in there. Throw it open coil first and close coil back. If that works for me the best. Okay, and then you take this and you can drill out these holes, make them a little wider, and then the center hole, because in the center you got a hole there, you can just drill this out, it opens it up. You're going to get less power if these aren't open, because remember, a blaster must not just push air out the front, it must pull air out the back if it is a Springer. Always, always, always. It's one of the principles of blasters that I have seen many people abandon. Okay, so let's pretend that this is the Springer here. Okay. Boom and boom. Is it going to take longer? Yeah, it should, because doing everything I described usually takes a while. It usually takes me about 2 hours to do this mod. About that. Okay, but for the sake of time, I'm just trying to describe what you got to do. Okay. So there it is. There it is. So this is in the back. There it is. I highly do not recommend, and if you do it at your own risk, making this removable. I just think it should be solid. That's just me. And plus, you want to keep this breech finger out of here. Okay, so, let's take this right here. Okay, we got this back part here. Okay. Wish it would just keep that. You take this back part here. Okay. Boom. And boom. Okay. So now everything's intact. So, now, let's, okay. Put this in the front here, as like it belongs. Alright. Okay. Okay. So now, with the whole breech closed, with everything closed, the breech closed, everything, you want to glue this to this, and you want it closed because you want the alignment of this outer barrel. So when it's put back together, it's in perfect harmony with everything. Okay, so we take, this moved on me a little because it's not actually glued. Okay, so we took this right here. This is glued. Remember, to be sure, you want this to go back about 1/8 when you're originally gluing. Okay, and then you glue all this over here and here and here and in here, and you glue in here, so that when you put it together, okay, there it is. Now you want to store it glued overnight. You want to hold it up vertically, like so. Here, I'll show you in a second. Okay, so hold it like that and just let it sit there overnight. All right. When that's dry, take it, and this crowning right here, take the same go-to glue, and just glue this top right here, and just have that, how did I do it? Have that sit like that overnight. So and then it's sealed from the front and the back, and that's not going anywhere. I hope this was a helpful video for you. And you guys will be seeing your kits soon. I just had to get some sort of instructional video, and I've been struggling with this. This is the one part of the whole kit I've been struggling with, is the video on how to do it. Take care.